Now, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Live with Roger Hanson. This is my second episode of Roger's Realtime Talkshow event, and today I have a topic that I've been wanting to bring up for actually quite a while. Besides me, I have Mark Edworthington here with me. If you'd like to say
Hi,
hi, Mike.
hi, hi.
Okay. So today, what I wanted to bring up and have a conversation about was actually the let me was the for here in the United States. Well, not for here, just in the United States. It's called the juvenile court that we have to deal with, but I don't know what they call it over in the United States or in the United Kingdoms. But
Family courts, I think.
family court, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
family court's a good thing to call it anyhow when it comes to just general uh, wording, here. But for me, what I wanted to talk about is non-custodial rights for parents, and I have a good example of one issue that happened out of Ireland that I really think would be good to discuss as well. I'm trying to figure out where I put everything. I'm running a little bit behind because I've been having some issues with my internet cutting in and out, so give me a second. But yeah. But basically it's about the custodial non-custodial parents' rights, and also about the the welfare system for custodial parents, because on Jitsi, or not Jitsi, but Skype, I noticed a video that was put out of somebody who was in England, um, who was talking about the father's rights after his wife left him, and it reminded me of a story that took place back in the early 1900s. It was over Desmond Doyle. He was an Irish father whose wife had left him and abandoned the children, just literally walked out of them, and family services came in and took his children. And him because he couldn't have signatures from him and his wife, they decided that he was an unfit father because the wife wasn't in the household and took the children. And they actually made a movie out of it, and the one of the little girls who was in the family wrote a book. Now, I thought that that would be a good subject of discussion. Um, it was actually pretty popular, I guess, over in that area. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before, Mark. It's called Evelyn.
not that I can recall. When was the film made? When
Uh,
was it published?
the film was made, I believe, in the 90s. I believe it was. Um, I it had what's his name, Brosnan,
Okay.
the one that played
Mm,
007.
yeah, Charles. Uh, yeah. No, I can't recall seeing that. No.
No,
Uh,
I have a Wikipedia thing on him, and Desmond Doyle was alive between 1924 and 1986. He was an Irish painter and professional pianist whose children, Evelyn, Maurice, Noel, John, Kevin, and Dermot, were taken into the custody of the Ireland Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Now, on December the 26th, they did it to me again. No, I didn't. Okay. On December the 26th, 1953, St. Stephen's Day, Charlotte Doyle ran off with Desmond's cousin, leaving the 6 children with neighbors in Fatima Mansions, a public housing complex. The maternal grandmother offered to care for the children, but Desmond was angry and refused to let his children have anything to do with her. Unemployed and looking for work, he was unable to pay someone to care for his children and turned to ISPCC, who placed the children in industrial schools. Now, do you know anything about this term, industrial schools? That's one thing that stood out.
Uh, 19th century. So I presume we're talking about sort of schools related to getting children directly into employment. If I remember rightly, Republic of Ireland and or even even the UK had aged the average age of a child leaving school was 12
12.
at the time.
Now, when I hear that, it makes me think of stories like Oliver Twist. You know what I mean? Where they put you in
Mm.
like orphanages and send you out to become an apprentice for some kind of person. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I don't know
Mm.
for sure if that is. I know you're over in that neck of woods, so you know more about it
Well,
than I would.
this is long before my sort of time. Um,
I know that, but I just figured you'd have some general idea of how things worked back then. like,
um,
and with this Fatima mansions. Now I know that like there's like different housing projects and complexes within those areas and stuff. Like, and they like the ones over there are pretty huge. I know that much. They had that one that burned down about what was it? About 8 years ago. You remember that?
no, no.
It was.
Um,
It hit the news pretty big,
uh,
but okay. So here, let me. Industrial schools. Doyle had been advised. No, had been advised the children could stay until he could care for them himself. Evelyn was sent to uh, High Park convent. Her 5 brothers were sent to the boys' industrial school. So she was sent to a convent, and Evelyn was the one who eventually wrote the book that inspired the movie. Now Doyle
uh,
left to work, no, to find work in England to earn enough money to set up a home for his children. While there, he met Jesse Powers, née Cunningham, who was his landlord and who later accompanied him back to Ireland. Upon returning in 1955, the state refused to give his children back without written permission from both the father and the mother. Since the mother could not be located, the wishes of one parent acting alone did not count, and the law stated they would not be released until they had reached the age of 16. So that's the basic background there. And I found out too that not only did she leave those children, but she was leaving them for another man, and she claimed that he had beaten her and all this stuff, but still yet was able to leave her children, and ended up pregnant a month later. Walked away from 6 kids and raised an entirely different family after that. And then after Evelyn came out with the book, okay, all these other kids that were in this new family decided to, stand up for their mom and say, well, he beat her and everything, and I'm like, kind of, it's kind of crazy. And
Hmm.
the the whole thing that really stands out to me is like in that whole situation, it is kind of tricky because later even Evelyn said that he did have a temper, you know what I mean? But back during that time period, though, that was pretty much the way it was when people raised their children. Kids got the spankings and disciplined pretty harshly, So I can kind of understand where she's coming from with that. But just to be fair, I wanted to mention, she did say that she did get disciplined a lot harder than what most people today would. So what do you think about that story?
I'm curious to know what the father or the two people's trade or background was. But yeah, it was quite well. I wouldn't say overly common, but it was common back in that sort of era for that to happen.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
I think it was really weird when it came to the the part about them getting put in convent and everything in the industrial schools, and I guess kids in that school was being treated pretty harshly too, like the treatment.
And and also you've got to think that Ireland or Republic of Ireland is a predominantly Catholic sort of area,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a very large amount of Catholic run schools from Catholic run schools.
uh, I don't know. That's I think that would make sense too because freaking they have a um, the convent, and I believe they've got a link in there for Saint Stephen's Day is Christian. It's Christian Saints Day, and
Mm.
oh, actually, they're just mentioning it. Charlotte, yeah, she ran
Mm.
off on Saint Stephen's Day, and that right there is that's a holiday.
26th of December.
Isn't that
Yeah,
Boxer
26th
Day?
of December. Yeah, Boxing Day. Boxing
Boxing
Day.
Day. Yeah,
Mm.
and it was. Let me see what it is. I thought for sure that, yeah, here it is. Ireland Society of Prevention of Cruelty to Children is what the place is called, and that's history in the 20th century. In 1901, King Edward VII and his wife Queen Alexandra became patrons of the society upon the death of Queen Victoria. In 1905, Reverend
Mm.
Benjamin Waugh retired from the directorship of the society as a result of failing health after 21 years of service. In 1910, King George V and his wife, Queen Mary, became patrons of the society upon the death of King Edward VII. And, what was it? Shortly after the outbreak of the First War, 18 inspectors joined the Royal Navy, and a further 42 joined the Army. During the course of the war, the NSPCCC or CC inspector for Manchester was awarded the Victoria. They're going to give you like a whole freaking story of everybody that was wow. Um, the NSPCC therefore avoided street collections until the War Charities Act in 1916, which introduced regulations to protect and guide collectors. So in 1919, the Prince of Wales, later to be King Edward VIII, became the patron of the society. So this is a society that's working on this stuff. That's what they're referring to. This wasn't
Mm.
even this wasn't even a like organization. It was a society.
Well, society organisation. It's a synonym for evil. But yeah,
Like in 1990, the NSPCC documented allegations of satanic ritual abuse in 1990 with the publication of survey findings that of 66 child protection teams in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, 14 teams had received reports of ritual abuse for children, and 7 of them were working directly with children who had been ritually abused, sometimes in groups of 20. Oh my God.
how many of them were convicted?
I mean, that's crazy.
Or
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. Remember, there's a difference between an allegation and
yeah, yeah.
actual. Yeah.
Now, an investigation into SRA allegations by the British government produced over 200 reports, of which only 3 were substantiated and provided to be
Mm.
examples of pseudo satanic abuse, in which sexual abuse was the actual motivation and the rituals were incidental. Wow,
Mm.
that's crazy.
Mm.
So, wow. That's crazy. That is crazy. I didn't expect that just from clicking on there. I mean, that's like at the
Uh,
first part. First, you find out that it's just like a society. It's not even. It's, it's not even a like organization. So they took these kids and they just turned them into or turned them over to a society. Like you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying society, right? You know what I mean? Like you have the freaking Freemasons, and then you got the. I think you guys have that water uh, guild. It's probably the oldest society documented.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well,
Water.
yeah, they're part of the water company. It goes all the way back to the Great Stink of London. Whenever they switched over to flush toilets, they had
Okay.
a had a group of people that had to go out and make sure the water was pure and it wasn't backing up and stuff. So
Mm.
I forgot the name of it, but that's weird. It's that's weird. I didn't realize. Well, Ireland Society. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a society. So. Um, okay, campaign to return the children to him. Upon his return to his homeland in autumn of 1954, Doyle petitioned for the return of his children. Nevertheless, the government denied his request, citing the best interests of the children. He subsequently fought a legal battle to regain custody of them, which required overturning the provisions of the Irish Child Act of 1941. This law prevented a father from caring for his own children in the absence of their mother if she was living, unless she gave written permission for him to do so. Doyle became involved in a case presented before the Irish Supreme Court in which it was claimed that the Children's Act uh, contravened several sections of the Irish Constitution. In December 1955, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Desmond Doyle and ordered that the children be returned to him and that his court costs were to be reimbursed by the government. Now, the Children's Act of 1941, um, uh, I don't, I don't think it has it on Wikipedia for it, but that basically spelled it out. That's what I'd heard before too. Like they wouldn't give him back his children because um, uh, first of all, like if a mother wasn't in the household, they didn't think that the father was fit enough to take care of their children. Like they
Mm,
wanted the mother and the father to both be in the household. You know what I mean? So
mm,
if
mm, yeah.
the mother wasn't there, then it's like they made it out to where the father was unfit to take care of his own children, which I think that's kind of ridiculous, you know. Um, but what are your thoughts on that? I'm not really gonna dwell over all that. So
Well, we are talking about different sort of era, aren't we, from modern day? So, and also it's the entire sort of family values sort of argument. Two parents in the household, preferably male and female. Of course, that's a bit of a contentious argument these days.
yeah,
Um, mm,
but you know, I mean, a lot of people believe like the court systems have gotten worse when it comes to that stuff, and like my whole point is like it hasn't really. And if you look at it like this is horrible. If they had this kind of stuff being brought up to the courts today, it'd be laughed out of
mm,
freaking court. You know, nobody'd put up with this stuff. This is actually pretty bad because what they're doing,
yeah.
they're going through freaking the entire uh, and I don't, you can say country of Ireland. I guess it is a country still, right? So
Republic, yeah, country, yeah, Republic of
yeah,
Ireland, to give the title.
they're going through there and just snatching up these kids because they don't have a mother that's living in the household. You know, so this is one case, but it's for everybody in Ireland during that time period. So that's pretty
But
rough.
also, you also remember it is a very heavy, or it has always been a very heavy Catholic country. So, the old Christian Catholic sort of values and yeah, the traditional family concept.
No, right. Rafford was mentioned about wanting to get on Skype too, so I don't know.
Yeah, and also that.
I today, man, I was good enough to get up on time and do the topic. So I mean, I'm having a
Mm,
rough time with getting the internet to keep going. So we've had two times that the internet's blanked out just when we were here. So just you know, I
mm,
now later on maybe I'll go and do Skype and everything. I got everything settled out on adjustments for my audio, but it was
that's good.
actually the audio, the noise settings in there. They were the ones that
Yeah.
were causing me to cut out and everything. So,
Mm,
um, so now there are some things I want to talk about. I want to first talk about the non-custodial parents too. Right there, we had an example of a father who had custody of his children, right? But I want to
mm,
also talk about non-custodial parents, people that never had custody, of their children, but they still want to see them. There's a
Yeah.
from from what I've had in my experience of it. It was I had a constant problem, and I've read into this too with other people in their court cases where they've had issues where the non-custodial parents um, had a hard time getting visitations with their children. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
usually it was because threats of the police being called if they want to see their kids were made and things like that by the by the parent that had custody. I don't want to make it a male or female thing. I'll just say non-custodial and custodial parents. But that is one
Interest,
issue. Go ahead.
Interestingly, I was talking to a friend the other day, and he's split with his other half. Um, in the UK, or at least England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, or England and Wales, um, the process is to try to resolve any issues. Is the courts recommend that you, or actually force you to go into a mediation process
Yeah.
before it goes to court,
Hmm.
but you've got to have both sides, both parties, agree to the mediation. The issue with my friend is that the other side is not agreeing to the mediation, and without the mediation, the legal process can't, as far as I'm aware, can't continue.
Yeah. See, and that's something that I had an issue with, except for the problem with my ex was she was in trouble with family services. That's what we call them over here. And
Mm,
she ends up
mm,
getting in trouble, the custodial parent, and I get notified by a sheriff coming up to me with a notice saying that I need to show up for court. Um,
mm,
and I've had problems with her and her family making threats that saying if I went out to see my son that I would have the law called on me and stuff like that. And
uh,
it got to the point where I
that,
finally just didn't even try to make the effort after about maybe 2 years of it, putting up with that stuff. And finally, I get
mm,
notified in the mail that she's in trouble. And this is when I finally started going to court over the situation. And it becomes even worse in that situation because now the mother is in trouble. And I found out that not only is the mother in trouble, but not just one parent is held liable. Both parents are. Okay, so say you have a girlfriend or a wife that has your baby and she gets in trouble, okay, with the family services, she's not the only one in
mm,
trouble. You are too, even though you wasn't even in the situation. Okay, so both of you have to go to court and fight for your parent or your parental rights.
mm,
You see, even though you weren't even in the situation. And that's kind of what really was freaky about that, you know what I mean? And the thing that happened to me was it took, for me to get my visitation set up, it took almost a year. And it was supervised visitation, you know what I mean? So um, that got hairy for me, and I've seen where because I've had to go through the court files and see like the court hearings that took place over custody, and most of the stuff here in the United States, you don't get to see the court cases. You have to like find people's blogs and stuff and how they write about it because the all of the files concerning juvenile court are sealed. It's
okay.
supposedly for the protection of the child. You know what I mean? So they get to hide behind child laws, and run around and
But,
do.
ob- but obviously, both parties are required to be aware of the allegations and any evidence.
Mm-hmm. It
Obviously,
well, the deal was though. See, it got even worse with me because um, when I finally heard about it, you know what I mean? Like I said, a cop or a sheriff, he came up with an appear an notice basically to show up for court. I'm having a hard time thinking at the moment, but a summons. But he came up with a
yeah,
summons saying
yeah.
that I needed to show up for court. So I was fine with that. I showed up for court, and the crazy part about it is like these people had no idea how I received that summons. They didn't even know where I was. You know what I mean? And my ex girlfriend, she knew where I lived. I live like 15 miles away from her. You know what I mean? So they took her word over actually them doing a diligent search to find out where I was. They took her word over it, even though she was in trouble with them. They took her word for it. That I was nowhere to be found. So they, instead of doing a diligent search, they waived that, and it took um, almost a year before I found out, before I got notified in the mail that she had been in trouble and that I needed to show up for court. And they didn't even know that I'd gotten that summons. Somehow I ended up with it, and nobody knew how I got it.
But obviously, the lawyers and the court would be able to find out where you are anyway, through warrants or um, codes and information or something similar.
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking maybe it
Mm.
was the prosecuting attorney or whatever it was. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I just thought that it was real weird. That whole part. It just seemed like there was no organization there. That was my first introduction to how unorganized our court system here in Franklin County is.
Frank, sorry, which state?
It's in Illinois.
Oh, okay. I think that it's a state by state issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no sort of federal sort of framework there,
Um,
or
there is a
limited federal.
federal there is a federal framework, but the responsibilities are dropped to the state level, and it gets even
Yeah.
more insane because like the state workers aren't even the ones um, for responsible for taking care of the child. Okay, so what they do is they give counselors, I guess you could say, for the child through the court systems. And then those counselors are employees of the state or the non governmental organization, which is what they are. They're not even governmental.
Mhm.
But then they hand it off to workers in other organizations like the Catholic Social Services, you know what I mean? For
Mhm.
visitations and stuff like that. It's pretty messed up. My son, when he was going through that, had at least, I'd say, in a matter of 2 3 years, he had at least four, no, three counselors, and he had about four people that just came to pick him up and bring him to where we had our visitations. Okay, and this was all because they uh, they didn't want me to have custody. They took. See, and this is the weird part. Like they took the recommendations of what the child wanted over being responsible. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was 6 years old, and the courts thought it was more important that he stayed with his grandmother, who lived 2 houses down from my girlfriend, who was a drug addict, you know, rather than being in my custody and letting me take care of him, you know. Um, that,
How neutral was the grandparents in the
the,
situation?
that they, I mean, that was their property she was living on, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So, and like I said, you know, they made, and I'm not for sure if the grandparents made the threats. I was just hearing out of her mouth about police being called.
Okay.
You know, so
So this is all alleged. Yeah.
yeah, alleged.
Mm.
Now, I couldn't get along with the grandfather, you know, but the grandmother was she was a pretty nice woman. She still is, but like the grandfather, he passed away, and I just could not get along with him because I knew the relationship he had with his daughter. First off, he wasn't very good to her, you know, and other issues. Because I've known my ex girlfriend since we were like 18, 19 years old, you know.
Mm.
So, um, I, but when it came to his grandmother though, his grandmother's pretty nice. So,
Uh,
but I don't know, that whole situation just didn't go off right. It was pretty strange, and that's how I got introduced with the court system with that situation. But the thing too that I want to talk about is now like the non-custodial parents who live. Oh, we lost it again, didn't we? This is getting crazy. I'm having some issues here with the internet right now. I am trying to get everything back into the thing. I just lost my connection again. Uh, so apologize. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go and check the stream and see if it's back up, or see if it's up still. Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, we got it now. So
mm.
it looks like it's up. I apologize about that.
Cool.
Hit live real quick. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not quite sure exactly what the deal is on it. I'm guessing that it's still going. So, um,
Cool.
all right. Okay, now, with what I was talking about, though, you know, the the one thing I wanted to get into is what I was learned too about the non-custodial parents who live below the poverty level. Like, and one thing that really stuck out to me is like you got to be careful about what you say with these people, you know, because like if you're below the poverty level and you want to call lawyers and everything to help try to get assistance, first of all, you don't call these people and tell them that you want custody of your child. You know what I mean? You say you want visitation because there is a big difference. If you tell these guys that you want custody of your children, these lawyers here will straight out tell you good luck with that. You know what I mean? And they won't even help you. They're like, that's pretty much a suicide mission, basically. Because the laws here in the United States are basically geared at the woman getting custody of their children. And in that video that I watched that made me want to make this topic, that was one reason why I did that, is because these days you hear women saying they don't have the same rights that men do, but that's not the truth. I mean, when it comes to welfare system and women having more rights than men, then that's true. I mean, a woman can get more things done through the court systems than what men can, and it's point blank the truth. I've seen it from experience, you know. They would rather hand your children over to their grandparents than give the father custody of their children. Okay, and that's in today's world. So I was just wondering, you got any thoughts on that? Oh man, it's doing it again, isn't it?
It's a bit more
Huh?
sensible, more sensible in this country.
I don't know. But I mean, you really should have checked it out. I seen the thing. This guy is from England. I mean, it sounds to me like they're actually more harsh in England than what they are here. To be honest with you, it's really
not so sure. Seems to be a much more
like he's
of an open procedure.
He's what's it called? Yeah, I've got an episode of it on here, but he's on TikTok, and it's off the Lambo or something like that. But he uses it as like a metaphor about how they deal with things. You know what I'm saying? Like, for him, the situation was his wife, or the supposed person, turns around and leaves him, okay? Then takes the children and wants custody of the children after leaving him and cheating on him with another man. Gets custody, and then after she gets custody, he loses visitation and all rights to see his kids because she doesn't want him to see him no more. So then England turns around, and literally, one thing that's disturbing to me is they have a protection of molestation against a parent. Okay. Now that's it. Don't you think that's a little bit kind of extreme to freaking post a notice of or protection of molestation of children? I mean, you understand what molestation means, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There is I can't remember what chapter it is now, but there is a publicly accessible child sexual abuse list, which is your governmental court provided.
No,
the
thing is, like, he didn't say that he didn't do anything like that, but at the same time, I'm kind of getting the idea that he was referring to the fact that that he never did anything like that. You know what I mean? Maybe she went in and made accusations or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
well, this is all alleged, so without knowing the actual case itself, I can't really comment. But obviously, each case would be different anyway. So,
Well, when you say alleged, though, I mean, like, even here in the United States, it's alleged because, like, with the family
mm, mm,
services here, you don't have to have fact or anything. I mean, your neighbor can make an accusation against you, and next thing you know, you got an investigation going on for the next year. You know,
mm,
that's basically what they do. I mean, none of it is really like factual court. You know what I mean? Like, there's no things that go through the family services in this country is civil. It's not even criminal cases.
mm.
You know what I mean? They can take you to court on civil charges and uh, go force you to go into juvenile courts and stuff like that under a civil charge without even being charged with a criminal uh, a crime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But if there is a criminal element, then that's dealt with a different court. That's a different procedure altogether.
No,
Um,
they're put together. It's literally
okay.
I was sitting in the waiting room of the courtroom, okay, and I was in the same room as guys who freaking were in handcuffs and literally got in trouble for freaking beating their wives, okay? For beating their
Mm.
wives, and they show up in court in handcuffs with the sheriff escorting them. I sat in a freaking waiting room with these same people. That's what I'm saying. They treat them all like that, no matter what. There's no distinguishing between them.
But you weren't aware of the seriousness of the nature of the cases.
Um, I'm
They,
pretty, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure they were handcuffed. I mean, literally, they were handcuffed
yeah,
and
yeah,
frick.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, obviously they were handcuffed, but you don't know the background of those cases.
Right.
This
They
is where you really need to break down.
well they that's another thing that I was talking about with the courts. They make it to where it's closed court, nobody can come in, and they're also
Mm.
keep the files sealed so that nobody can
Okay,
actually.
in this,
Yeah,
okay,
like the
I'm not sure about the
pu-
legality of that in this country, but all court cases, unless there was a national security issue there,
it's child
have to
protection
be
laws.
public or no, the court cases themselves are publicly available and have to be publicly available,
See, that's
at least in the UK.
so you guys do have access to the files just as general public.
Yeah,
So, see, here in the United
yeah.
States, we don't have any access to it whatsoever. Like, you can go
Mm,
in and you can read blogs and stuff like that, but they do not want you having access to that information. And they say it's for the protection of the
mm.
children, you know. Uh, so, I mean, I understand
Oh,
where the guy was coming from in his video. Okay, I do understand that he was going through some hard times, but I also want to point
yeah.
out I think the court systems are worse about this. They're the ones that are really the bad guy because they're profiting off this stuff. You know what I mean? It's become more or less a freaking way of making money, and they can hide behind secrecy in order to get away with it. You know?
Obviously, in this country, because those children are minors, their names are not revealed in the cases.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at least I don't think so, am I? But yeah, those records should be publicly available, or at least in the UK.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Mm,
it would be worth finding out too, just to make sure. Because I mean, like I said, here they don't let you do it. Like, it's
mm,
and that's the way I feel about it. You know what I mean? I really feel that they use that just as a way of passing laws that aren't constitutional. Like they get away with that. Like, how do you have a judge turn around and give the legal rights to a non-governmental organization to go in and literally destroy a family, take the child away, and they're not even employees of the government or the state or anything. You know what I mean? These people are a non-governmental organization, and then what they do is they hand out the responsibility to other groups that aren't even employed by the friggin' court system. You know?
Uh, but presumably there is licenses given to those organisations, and
Yeah.
there are certain requirements they have to meet and are reviewed upon.
With ours, it's called the Catholic Social Services, and I'm sure
Uh,
they had to be certified and everything, and they had
mm,
to
mm,
take their tests to see if they fit the quota that's required of them. You know what I mean? To me, it just sounds like a big
mm.
monopoly on a way of creating revenue for a socialist organization. You know, it doesn't sound like anything that's constitutional, that's legal. You know, it's that's what it sounds like to me. They're just it's a big way of making a profit and then using exploiting children's rights in order to do it. So you know, um, and
We'd have to have a look at the legislation, the requirements around that.
mm-hmm. Now another thing that got on my nerves is like whenever I tried to call to see if I could get some help. That what we have here is called the Land of Lincoln. Okay, and they're supposed to help people who can't afford to get a lawyer and stuff like that. Um, Now, the first thing they do whenever you call them up is you get an automated freaking message. Okay. And I didn't even know. This is the first time I've ever called this place. And it was an automated message. And guess what they wanted to know? They wanted to they wanted to know
So,
information that concerned my age, my race, my marital, and my financial status. They wanted to know if I was married to the girl, what my age was, and what my race was. You know, and what my
uh,
financial status is
what through an automated call?
through an automated call. I'm not lying.
Okay.
That's the
I
craziest
think
thing.
in the UK that would be a violation of the UK Data Protection Act. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I can see general data protection regulation issues there.
But the messed up part is
GDPR.
not only did I get that call, but I was refused service. Okay, by the legal
Um,
welfare system by this freaking automated question service. You know what I mean? Not only did they ask me the questions, but then they say we can't help you. You know, on the phone. Not one time was I
okay.
able to even talk to a human being, man. I mean, that's crazy. So you call them up, you
Mm,
get an automated
mm,
service that asks you the questions, and then at the end they say, "Well, we can't help you. Have a nice day." And it's crazy shit, you know. Um, I that's what really sent me over the edge on all that. I couldn't believe it, and then I found out from my sister that it doesn't only apply to men either. Like she says, it's almost impossible for even women to get help from this freaking organization. You know,
mm.
but
Well, as I keep on mentioning, the within the EEA there are a lot stronger consumer um, data protection rights. The US is extremely weak on this area,
they're horrible. Like
except
they,
it, yeah, with the exception of the Health Act, the HSBC, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, the HIPAA. Apart from HIPAA.
Oh, HIPAA. That's the
Yeah.
thing though. See, they hide behind HIPAA laws too. That's the
Mm,
thing about
mm,
these groups, and like they've set up monopolies to where they're exploiting the system so they can make profit. Okay, like they're creating
mm,
monopolies literally. Those organizations like the Christian or no the Catholic Social Services. See, they went and they took the exams and they got freaking passed and everything. And they went through the regulations, so they're qualified. So that means that all these other organizations who didn't have the money and the access to, you know, get approved with those regulations can't take that job. So it goes to specific people. You know what I mean? It's
mm,
just like in prison systems where the cafeteria has to be supplied by food. School systems same way. The same thing with that
mm.
Catholic social services. I mean, these people literally are getting jobs without even having to bid for them. So it's kind of screwed up.
Okay.
You know, um, that's the one
Mm,
thing that really uh, is interesting, and it does. It goes down like my son never visited his actual caseworker when it came to freaking DCFS. It never happened. He had this counselor that was from the Catholic Social Services, and that was it. You know,
mm, mm.
so I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff about it that it's pretty interesting. Now, another thing too, have you guys got anything over there that is kind of like what we have here? It's called child support enforcement.
Don't you elaborate?
We've got an organization called Child Support Enforcement that if a non-custodial parent doesn't pay child support, that this organization will hunt them down and literally freaking force them legally to pay child support or they'll go to jail.
Uh, I would think that would be done through a state agency in this country, and I can't see it anybody going to prison for that. And because that becomes a civil issue afterwards. Now that becomes a criminal issue because of non-payment of fines.
Yeah. Well,
I would need to do more research on that one.
no, I mean, here they don't call them like fines or nothing. It's just like child support. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to
Mm.
pay a monthly amount for your children and everything. Uh, that
I believe that in this country that if you don't pay um, a charge, then that becomes a court case in itself.
hmm I've actually like that video that was on Skype. The guy said that
Mm,
he can't even mention his children's name like on the internet. If he comes on the internet and
mm.
he says their names on the internet, he if he mentions the anything that's discussed with your guys' child program, he can literally go to prison for that. I mean anything.
Well, yeah, personal identifying information um, is a violation under EEA GDPR. But I can sort of understand why such information shouldn't be published and why
Well, kind of elaborate on that.
there would be serious. Well, in the EEA, the General Data Protection Regulations, which is part of the UK Data Protection Act, requires consent from the individual for um, any personal information, personal identifying information to be released in the public, um, except for when it goes to court and court records are made. Um, lost the chain of my thoughts then.
It
So yeah, it would be an offence of the general data protection regulations in this country if, or in the EEA, if personal identifying information was published without consent,
yeah.
and
It,
obviously um, those those children are being minors, therefore legally speaking, they cannot give consent.
Now, see, that's what I was bringing up. The organization that we call like child support enforcement. Now,
Mm,
with them, they are they. I've heard that they're from people that work there that they are legally prevented by law to assist any non-custodial parent with the information about their children or their child. You know what I mean, or their whereabouts. Like they can't even tell them where they're located. You know,
mm, mm,
I found that pretty messed up. That had to do with my oldest son because for the longest time I didn't even know who he was. I just started a relationship with him within the last, I'd say, about 15 years. But before that I didn't even know what his
mm,
name was. I had a I had him out of marriage, and it was a teenage pregnancy. Um, she ended
mm.
up taking off with her grandmother to Reno, Nevada. you know, and I was like sitting there with my hands, like what the hell. But I never got to really know him. Didn't even know what his name was because she was still pregnant. And I contacted child support enforcement, and they kept telling me, "Look, man, we can't legally help you, like, because of their information. We can't even tell you where
Mm.
they're at, anything like that, because I thought that there was a chance they could be in Reno or they could have been in Indiana, but later on is when I found out from my son that they actually did go to Reno, Nevada. So, but I mean,
Mm.
just stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like they can't even give assistance to anybody who's non-custodial. It's like they just can't give the information away.
But this is when you get a lawyer involved and legal representative involved and get them to deal with it.
That's money. It's a lot of money. Like
Yeah, yeah, man, yeah,
these these
yeah,
lawyers make tons of money off this stuff, and
yeah.
I mean it's just like tons of money. This is a freaking, like I'm saying, it's a profiteer that they're using these social programs to make money, big money off of it, and they're exploiting children to do it. I mean, it's insane. I just, eh, I've actually tried to just look at this from a rational point of view, and every time I do, I just keep seeing stuff that's just so horrible and ridiculous. It's it's insane.
Um, I'm not so sure if it's exploiting children. You could make the opposite argument that it's protecting children.
Uh, I think them saying they're protecting children is hiding behind protection laws in order to get away with it,
Mm,
things that aren't legally legal. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these socialist regulations, they're constitutionally illegal, and I don't care what country you're in. I mean, read the declaration that your government put down, and then look at some of these social laws.
Remember, technically, the United Kingdom doesn't have a written constitution. You
Yeah,
could argue that the Bill of Rights, 1689, and those other acts are, are written constitution. That's a bit of a interesting legal argument in itself.
that's because you guys went with a queen that said that let them all eat cake. Remember that term? Let them
Mm.
eat cake. hmm It's, you remember
You,
that? Yeah, you probably
you're
never.
thinking the French. Yeah, you're thinking of the French rather than the Brits.
No,
Yeah.
it's an
Um,
old American Revolution story where um, we didn't want England to enforce as bad taxes on the colonies is what they did. So the colonies sent message to the Queen, and the Queen said, "Let them all eat cake."
I think you are getting a little bit confused with the French and British there, possibly. Um,
Well, tell me this
well,
story. I want to
yeah,
hear
yeah.
it.
Mm,
You got a story that
mm.
pertains to that? I mean, you're saying the French, don't they eat cake? Is that
Well, let them eat brioche is the correct
Porsche?
term. And that's ancient, not Antoinette. God, my brain's gone. Um, that was the French Revolution, wasn't it?
Yeah, those are French.
Yeah. Mm.
Uh, no, we um, talked about the child support enforcement thing. Now, the thing we have that I really do think is important to talk about is the civil cases and within the juvenile court. Now, for me, what was disturbing was the fact that they use civil cases. Like, you understand what a civil case is about, right?
Mm. Yeah,
Like the difference between an actual, like,
yeah, I know. Criminal and civil. Yeah.
now the thing that gets me is when they use juvenile courts for civil cases, they're literally like making the child out to be like uh, their property. You know what I mean? A possession. Um, because
Mm.
with civil cases, that's what civil cases are all about. It's about lawsuits and stuff like that when it comes to possessions and level, you know, stuff like that. And that's the one thing that really stood out to me when it come to this, because this is supposed to be juvenile courts. You know what I mean? This doesn't just deal with like
Mm.
parents either. You know what I mean? This deals with children who were in trouble with the law. You know, had to go to juvie, things like that. You know what I mean? So these people
But
are,
if they, and on if they committed or if they've allegedly committed a criminal activity, then that's a criminal issue rather than a civil issue.
yeah. But that's my whole point. I mean, why is it? Why are they using a civil case instead of a criminal case? Why are they even using civil law in a juvenile court? I mean, that's pretty outrageous. You know what I mean? Like, okay, good example. You know, O.J. Simpson's wife, whenever her family was upset with the outcome of the murder trial, they still took him to civil court and sued him because they couldn't get him on criminal charges. You know what I mean? That's the proper way of using a civil case. Um, Now, why are they doing that with juvenile courts? instead of being able to get them on criminal charges, they take them to civil. You know what I mean? They use civil law.
But in this is more a US specific issue. In this country, if there is further evidence in a criminal after a criminal case, then the case can go to appeal anyway,
But they
which
can
is another
force them into the
criminal.
they can force them into the court systems though without even charging them with a crime. You see what I mean?
Okay, that's
Yeah.
a again that's a US specific issue,
I
which
mean,
I'm not overly aware of.
that's one thing that really stuck out to me. Like, and like I told you, they don't even have to have a case. Like, they're investigators. Their investigators can hear
Mm,
a complaint from a neighbor saying, or calling in and saying that this person did this or this, and that's hearsay. All right,
mm, yeah.
and
Mm.
because that neighbor called in and said that, they will do an investigation on that family for an entire year just because your neighbor doesn't like you and wanted to call DCFS and start shit with you or your family. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but if they can if they can be demonstrated that the neighbour has a bias against you, then presumably and there was no further evidence, then presumably the case would be dropped anyway.
Well, I mean, you don't even get to know who the person was that made the complaint. I mean, it's not
Well,
even.
obviously,
Uh,
until it goes to court, you do not want issues of you do not want issues where of retaliation.
yeah, that's
Mm,
that's the one thing that I can agree on, like keeping the thing about retaliation, but like at the same time, um, I don't think that the whole family should be put under investigation for an entire year because
but
somebody.
again, it's depend. Again, we're talking about specific cases there.
No, this is
Um,
mandatory. This is mandatory. If
uh,
you get any complaints by the DCFS on you, it's automatically 1 year investigation, nothing else. I mean, even if they don't
even
do,
if they can,
even if what?
yeah, I was going to say, even if they can prove there is that those allegations are spurious, bogus, within let's say the first month.
Well, yeah, what they do is if they find that out, they'll leave the case open, but they'll stop the investigation. You know what I mean? But
Okay,
the
okay,
case
yeah,
is
yeah.
still on the paper. So,
Mm,
and there's another thing that's really messed up too. Here in the United States, if that case remains open and it's not cleared, okay, and you have it on your record, that means that you have to wait like 6 or 7 years before you can get a job working with kids. You know, so this
mm,
person can make this complaint against you. Say you're working in childcare in some way, you know what I mean? And
mm.
they'll investigate you for a year, and that stays on your record. Then that means you have to go in and have it expunged off of your record because if you don't, then you can't work around kids for the next 6 years just because it's on your
Even if it's been proven,
right.
okay, even if it's been proven that it's a spurious allegation.
Mm-hmm. That's
Interesting.
that was something that I didn't have personal experience with, but I've learned it since. You know what I mean? And that is pretty
Mm, mm,
that's pretty rough. I mean, and mind you, this is all done without being charged with any crime whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like my ex, she ended up freaking having a drug problem and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, and the messed up part is when all that went down, she not one time got charged with any crimes. They found her on site high off of her, high as a kite, basically, and in front of my
mm.
son. You know what I mean? And the stuff got pretty bad. It was an EMT had to be called out, and then the police officers were there, and
Sorry,
finally,
EMT.
yeah, yeah, it got
Yeah.
to it got
Sorry.
emergency medical technician. They're the
Okay. Okay.
guys
Yeah.
that do the CPR, you know.
Yeah.
But it got to that.
Paramedics, as we would call them in this country.
They're called that too
Yeah.
here. It's just they. It's
Mm.
become casual term EMT for some reason,
Oh, yeah.
but but he
I've not heard that term before.
it got to that point, you know what I mean, where at the actual incident where it took place, that happened, and she wasn't even charged with a crime. This was in front of my son, you know. That really infuriated me. Like,
Was there a case of not being able to have sufficient evidence to charge?
they found her there, uh, high as a kite with the drugs. Freaking, my son was right there in the house. They didn't even take him into custody to test him for chemicals to see if he had been uh, introduced to any drugs either. Like, he was completely left out of it. He didn't get taken in, which is mandatory. If that type of situation happens, then the child has to be tested to make sure that they didn't get introduced to drugs and alcohol either.
Mm,
And mind you, he was 6 years old at this time, so
mm,
you know,
mm.
I think that's pretty messed up. And come to find out, if he wasn't able to freaking call the police, then she would have ended up dead because she almost OD'd on these drugs that she was taking. She was hooked on prescription
I'm
medicines.
just curious. I'm just curious if there's been any changes in either U.S. federal or your state laws since that time.
I I should probably go back and look it over. I was writing
Mm,
a crap load of blogs and everything about it back because I was in one of those pissed off moods. Um, I,
mm,
I was actually. It got even worse because like the thing about this whole situation with being a non-custodial parent is like first you get these frick, especially if you don't have money, you need to get a public defender. Okay, that's your first screw up
mm,
because you go in there and then they want you to sign papers saying that you're too poor to freaking provide yourself with a public defender or with an attorney. So
mm,
they're gonna give you a public defender. Well, I ended up doing that because everybody thinks, well, you need to have somebody representing you. So I get this public defender, and he does absolutely nothing. And come to find out, I didn't have the right to speak in court because I freaking had this guy appointed as my public defender. So in order for me to have something said, I had to tell it to him, and he had to talk to the
mm.
judge on my behalf. You know, and this guy straight up told
Rather
me,
bad.
on the phone, he's like, I don't want nothing to do with this. I usually don't get too involved in cases like this because it usually means that you're just a. Usually it ends up being a disgruntled, pissed off father. You know what I mean? And wanting to go crazy and stuff like
In
that.
in that case, could you not complain that your defender is biased and
That's
therefore not suitable for the case?
that's what I was wanting to do. I went in there, I told the judge and everything, and made the petition to have another a public defender. And he said
Mm.
there's no other ones available at the time. We're going to have to continue with the
Okay.
one. You know what I mean? Like it just got to the point where it seemed like it was a kangaroo court. You know. Um,
Sounds like you might have been better off defending yourself
that's
in
my
that
whole
case.
point. Yeah, I should have just. I should
Yeah,
have told him I didn't want an attorney, and because I mean,
yeah,
I'm it was ridiculous, and he didn't want to do or say anything on my behalf. I wanted to, have custody of my son because of how bad things had gone. But it seemed like they wanted to steer it more towards him being in his grandparents' custody over me. And they were doing that because a 6-year-old said he wanted to stay with his family, which was 2 houses down away from his
mm,
mom, who was a drug addict. So not now he doesn't have to stay in the house where the drugs is being used. He can live 2 houses down and watch it from a distance. This is how they protect the children in the United
mm.
States. It just it was
I,
pretty.
well, yeah, this is why I'm curious to know if there's been any changes in legislation since then.
Well, he's almost 18 now, so I'd say that's
Okay,
it's
so we're talking about
12
what 12
years.
years ago.
Yeah, 12 years ago. It it'd be interesting to check into, find out about it,
Mm,
because that's that was actually probably the most interesting part of my life when it came to doing all this stuff. It really fired me up. That's why I actually got started with that Praetorian channel that I have on YouTube that I've been posting stuff in.
mm,
Is because I really got into searching this stuff out, and like it it's it's one of the reasons why I have an issue with socialism too, because that's what all this shit is. It's just a bunch of crazy socialist programs that aren't even really legal. I mean, constitutionally, they don't have any legal rights whatsoever to even exist.
mm.
Handing handing cases out of court systems to a non-governmental organization is just outrageous. The fact they can get away with that is just insane.
But presumably these courts local government has the oversight on these organisations, these local Congos.
And see, that causes the bureaucracy. That's the beauty of
Mm,
it. They're making money. You see what I mean? They're making money.
mm,
You the lawyers are getting paid, the counselors are getting paid, the guy that frickin' is a student in college working part time driving the kids back and forth to see their parents is getting paid. You know, I mean, you got everything you
mm.
need right there. I mean, and guess who's paying for it? Huh?
Indeed. Yeah.
You see, that's the thing. That's the beauty of it all. It's a monopoly. It's just insane.
Mm,
So, um, now the investigators, okay, the thing that I had an issue with too was the waiving the search. The diligent search. That's actually in their procedures, okay, and their rules. The DCFS has rules and procedures that they have to live according to or practice,
mm,
and it's actually in their rules and procedures that they have to do a diligent search for the other parent, okay? But
mm,
I found
mm,
out that the investigators, if they see that or if they find it fit, they can waive that right. There's actually a waiver that they can get away with where they can waive the right or waive the diligent search for the other parent. Like they don't even have to do it
On what conditions?
on
On what conditions? Presumably there's conditions such
on
to this.
from my case personally. It was because my ex told them that I was nowhere to be found, so they didn't even try to make the effort to do the search. Okay,
Okay.
like I didn't exist. I,
Mm,
I live like 15 miles away from this woman. Okay, less than 15 miles probably, and they could have easily just freaking checked on the freaking records and found out that I lived just like one town over and get my address. It wasn't that hard of a search, you know what I mean? I'm right here, and
Mm.
they waived it and never even made the effort to do it. You know, that's what got me. That's what I was telling you about when I showed up for court. They were amazed that I even got paperwork to show up. You know,
Mm.
um, now I found out that the investigators that go out to do the investigation have the right to do that. Okay, it's not even the counselors or anything. It's the actual investigators that have to go out and investigate the case. They can waive the search, and they took her word over freaking anything else. Instead of doing the search, they took her word for it that freaking I couldn't be found anywhere. You know, when
Mm.
when do you take the freaking word of a person who's in trouble with you in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Like it's like a freaking cop taking the word of a criminal who looks at him and says, "I didn't do it. I'm innocent." You know. Okay, so since you said you're innocent, we're just gonna go ahead and let you go. You know. I find that pretty odd
Mm.
that the fact that they could do that. So and
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
now the other thing that I do know too is like non-custodial parents have no rights to know what's being discussed in court about the case concerning their children. All right, so when you go into court and you are non-custodial, which means you haven't been a part of the family. It was like in my situation, me and my ex had our son out of marriage. Okay, you know what I'm
mm.
saying? And I was never technically head of the household. This concerns them,
Okay.
not the married father who lost his wife story. I'm talking about people who've never been a part of the household. It was a pregnancy out of marriage. Okay, these non-custodial parents have no rights to know what's being discussed when it comes to their children at all. They have no legal rights to it. Now,
Okay.
now if the other parent gets in trouble, all right, for any reason, like in my situation, if they get in
Mm.
trouble with the law or the DCFS or whatever welfare program they have, um, the non-custodial parent is also in trouble too. It goes together. They don't distinguish between the two. So if one of or if the custodial parent gets in trouble with the court systems or with the DCFS, then automatically the non-custodial gets the same problem. Like I could have lost my parental rights over my son because freaking she got in trouble, and I would have never even heard about it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? My rights would have been gone just because she got in trouble with the law. And they
Interesting.
they they kind of screwed me anyhow because they didn't take my parental rights. What they did is they made frickin' his grandparents guardians. You see,
Mm. Mm.
so now they're guardians, and I still have my parental rights. You know, so that means I get to
Mm.
stand from a distance and watch somebody else take care of my son. It's pretty fucked up. Oh, we didn't take care of
Yeah.
your rights, but we're just gonna make these guys their guardians. Yeah, you know, that's pretty messed up. Yeah. And that was something that was kind of messed up with me when I seen that stuff. Like, you don't have the right uh, to know about any kind of information either in court when it comes to your child in a case. Whenever, like with me and my ex, I couldn't find out what actually took place. Okay, I had to actually read through the summons that I got to, because they always put a copy of the police report on the summons and a summary of it.
Mm.
And then I kept asking the counselors if I could get records to find out what the heck's going on, and nobody would ever send them to me. You know, they kept beating around the bush about, well, we need to have visitation set up, and then after the visitations were set up, well, we need to have somebody come into your house and inspect your house so that you can get in-house visitations and stuff. And then they wanted me to go down and they wanted me to get a mental evaluation to make sure I was right in the head, you know. So I did all that stuff, and then in the end they said, well, we've decided we're going to make his grandparents guardians, and we're not going to provide visitations anymore because that'll be up to them from this point on. I'm like, hold on, dude. When the hell did you make this decision? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't hear from a judge saying that this was supposed to take place. It was because they made the decision on their own. They just
Mm.
decided, you know what I mean? So that's my personal case, you know, and I didn't have the right to any of that information. They just did not allow it. It just didn't happen. So, um, yeah, and
Mm.
that was one of the things that I wanted to mention. Oh, they got me again. Wait a minute, we got internet, so let me find out. I'll have to. Did you get cut off, or was that me? Yeah, hold on. I'm pretty sure it
Yeah,
was me.
yeah, I think it was me. Yeah, no,
Okay,
I think it was me that time.
okay. I just wanted to make sure because this is long, a real long time compared to the last time we lost internet. So hopefully everything's
Mm.
still going. I don't know if that stream's doing good or not. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, it's going good. I hope it says
Mm.
it's live. So I've been babbling on pretty good. I think the only thing I can really mention is the circuit clerks. Have now for me, I think that that's the cleanser. Have you had any dealings with circuit clerks when it comes to law and stuff?
Mm, no, no,
Okay.
no, no, no. I think.
Now, you know what a disposition order is?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Now,
Uh,
you want
uh,
okay. Now, a dispositional order can be filed by the freaking circuit clerks. I don't know if it's like this in the UK or not, but the circuit clerk, without even having to go into court and everything, can file a dispositional order stating that the non custodial or the custodial parent, or both of them, um, are unable to care for, protect, train, or educate their children. Literally, they can
mm,
make an order saying that they are unable to do any of that, and they don't have to be approved by anybody. They don't have to be in court. They just sign their name on the paper. And then, after they do that, they can do it without any explanation for why the order was filed. Like, they don't have to explain
okay.
themselves. They don't have to explain themselves whatsoever. All right? It's like it's become a protocol in the court system the circuit court just automatically says that th- that these parents are just unable to do these things. You know what I mean? Like just a bunch of mental retards. You know.
Okay.
I found that pretty weird. I found it weird that they had the power to do this, and I that was one thing that I did want to mention too. And they can do it without the knowledge of, uh, you know what I mean, from for the non-custodial or either parent. Like they can do it without any of them even having knowledge that it had taken place. Like I didn't even realize that they had done it until I actually went through and read the paperwork that I did get, you know. And I thought that was pretty outrageous that they could get away with that. They did this even before I was located and given my summons to show up in court.
Mm.
Okay, it was just automatic. Didn't know anything about me. Okay,
Mhm.
but they were still able to freaking file a dispositional order. You telling me
Mm.
if that's?
Mm.
I mean, that's pretty messed up. Like you understand what those
Seems
are,
like-
don't you? That's,
Yeah, I was just looking at the UK legislation in relation to um,
what does it say?
um, just general as a general principle, an order preventing the disposal, whether by gift, sale, lease, charge, or otherwise, of assets in circumstances in where it is believed that a person may be attempted or attempting to do so in order to deprive another of the asset or to remove the assets from the court's jurisdiction.
See, that goes back to the words asset and everything. You know, in the civil cases.
Mm,
You know what I mean? But they're
mm.
literally treating these kids like property. You see
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. So in this case, yeah, yeah, I was just thinking that a child in this situation would be considered as an asset.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
It's. I mean, I know how you are. I know that sounds a little unsettling. You know what I mean? Because the way you looked at me
Mm,
just now, but in the just knowing you in general, but it is true. Okay, this stuff is
mm,
true.
mm,
They're treating children like this. I mean, in the end, being honest, I don't have any ill will towards my ex anymore, and I understand she did wrong. Okay, don't get me wrong, she
mm,
did do wrong, but the way this freaking welfare system treated her, and the way they did the investigation, and the way they treated my son as well as me, pissed me off more. You know what I mean? It the way they treat the kids is bad enough, but then like this supposed help they're supposed to be giving the mothers, they don't get.
mm,
You know what I mean? My ex just got arrested for drugs. All right, because she decided after she lost her son she was gonna fall into hard drugs. So my son was living two houses down for at least 2 3 years, you know, watching his mom freaking kill herself. So instead of living in the house watching it, he has to sit two houses down and watch it. You know what I mean? This is the kind of help
mm,
that they gave him, and this is the kind of help they gave her. That I mean, there was protocols that they should have done with her that they never did. You know, and like these drug programs they have. She was never given the opportunity to be a part of any of these drug programs that they're always uh, you know, bragging about, like drug court. We've got something called drug
uh,
court here in the United States, and they never did it. I mean, the best they wanted her to do was put her freaking prescription medicines in a safe and have somebody watch over them.
yeah. So it was. we're talking about prescribed drugs rather than
Yeah, like
purely legal. Okay.
she'd
Yeah.
abused prescription drugs at first, and it apparently went to
Mm.
harder drugs like crack cocaine and shit. I guess. And this woman lives out in the country too, mind you. Like she's not living
Okay.
in a city or a metropolitan area. She's living out in the country. Like the closest neighbor she's well, I ain't gonna say the closest neighbor, but I'll say the closest small town is maybe like 15 miles away. Or no,
Mm.
10. It's in between me and her, so it's about 10 miles away. Okay,
Mm.
and she ended up hooked on crack cocaine, basically, or methamphetamines. I'm sorry,
Mm.
methamphetamines. But and they gave her absolutely no help whatsoever. Like she 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 ended up going down that path. Um, I have a relationship with my son. We still talk and everything. We get along, but I just really wish that never happened to him because I know that real life is real life, but they could have handled
Mm.
the deal a lot better than what they did, and that's one reason why I wanted to make this a topic because I think stuff like this needs to be discussed more. There's too many people
Mm.
talking about a lot of crazy shit in the world when stuff like this is going on, and it needs to be discussed, but nobody wants to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
it,
Mm. Mm.
there just has to be a better way of doing things than stuff like this. So, what's your thoughts? Am I really that crazy?
Mm. No, you don't sound, you definitely don't sound like it. Again, we're talking about US systems, and this is one subject I'm not overly knowledgeable on.
Well,
So,
it's like I told you,
mm,
I'll post the guy's video up in my chat and everything if you want to check it out.
mm,
But it's also on
yeah,
Skype.
later.
Um, this
Yeah,
guy's
yeah, I did see it the other day.
this guy's from your country. I mean, and being honest, what he said, it sounds like it's harsher in England. Like he will
Mm,
go to freaking jail or prison for even mentioning anything that concerns the court. All right, anything that mentions his children, anything that mentions his ex, he can go to to prison for.
where if the court case is still ongoing, then yeah, you cannot talk about or can talk publicly about the case because that's
And see, they don't prevent that.
technically interference.
They don't prevent that here. Like if I wanted to, I can even during the court case, I can write a blog. I can write a blog, post it
Okay.
up, share that. I can do all that stuff. Like and like we're not held uh, criminally responsible for any of that. You know what I mean? And that's what I was saying. I think
Mm,
I think they're actually a lot harsher in England than what they are here. 'Cause that is pretty harsh for for here in the United States. Like he got hit hard. And then I mentioned that thing about molestation. Like I mean, why the hell are they? I mean, unless she accused him of molesting her kids or something, or being abusive in some way, why would they make a make? We call those um, orders of protection here in the United States. Why would they
mm.
give an order of protection for that kind of a charge? Is that just something they generally always give, fathers over in England? Is that the term that's used?
Again, not familiar. But I was just thinking, um, obviously in US you can't have jurors talk about court cases. during in public during the court case because I would be content. Um,
Yeah. No, they
so
would.
yeah, it was same sort of principle.
You wouldn't like go into freaking or go leave the courtroom and go straight to the media and give like every bit of information
Mm,
that you
mm,
want.
mm.
But
That's yeah, damaging the case.
no, I know, like with it would hurt my my case if I started saying a bunch of bad stuff about my ex, or if I started saying bad stuff about the counselors and everything. But I wouldn't go to jail
Mm,
over it. You know what I'm saying? Like that. That was the clincher.
mm.
Like,
Again, if you start saying bad things about individuals, then that would be a defamation case, and then that would be a civil case,
all right, they could sue me.
presumably.
They could they could
Yeah,
sue me for it. You know. I mean, like I wouldn't like literally go to jail over it. They could. I mean, there's a difference
no,
between taking
no,
my
no, no,
money and putting
it's
me in
civil.
jail. I've had to
Mm,
go to
mm,
jail before, you know, and I hate that shit. I don't want to sit freaking in jail because I said something that pertained to a court case. I mean, that's pretty rough. So, uh,
mm.
but I don't know. I should probably share that still on my chat so that everybody else can see it, kind of get their take on it. Because he actually did do a good job on his video. I thought he did. I thought he did really good. So I don't know
Yeah,
what
I'll have
you
to watch
think.
a bit later.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I'll have to watch a bit later. I only saw the reference, the URL, last night, so I haven't actually had any time to look at it. So,
I'll share it. I'll share it on my 24/7 or
mm,
on
mm,
my live with Roger Hansen chat. So
mm.
I didn't realize we had spent all this time on here. It's like an hour and 46 minutes. We actually pulled together a freaking decent sized show other than getting cut off the internet and stuff like that. So,
Mm.
uh, any,
Interesting discussion.
yeah, no. What's your final thoughts on that?
Uh, Again, I would like to know more. I would like to know US. I'm intrigued to know more about current UK legislation on this now. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, that's what I'm interested in too because, like, the other day when I seen that video, I was like, I'm wondering what's going on there because I've always, well, I haven't always, but I know enough about the United States laws when it comes to the juvenile courts. But then when I heard him
Mm.
talking, I'm like, that just blew me out of the water because, you know, I've dealt with that stuff myself here in the United States.
Was the video from his sole perspective?
He made the insinuation that it was another person, but I could see it probably being him. Uh,
So it may not be as objective as it could
yeah,
be.
yeah,
Mm,
and
okay, okay, yeah.
in
You always
cases
got to be careful about these ones.
in cases like this too, you're not gonna find too many objective people. Like, I mean, even with me, with the way I'm talking right now, I'm trying to be objective, but you can hear it. You know what I mean? I've had my own
Mm,
personal
mm,
experiences, and
mm,
it's hard to do. Like, especially when you get thrown into a situation like that and coming out of it. I've never heard anybody say that they've come out of these kind of situations feeling better, ever, at all.
this
It's
this is where we could do with a actual lawyer here
yeah,
to actually clarify any issues,
yeah.
any points.
And it all comes back to that money. You know what I mean? And I don't. I don't agree with them on the fact about, well, here in the United States. I'm not going, because Illinois is probably one of the most liberal socialist states in the United States. Okay, it's like maybe the second or third
I can think
worst.
of, yeah, I can think of worse.
You
New
know,
York and California.
they're the
Sorry.
only two. They're the only two. You know, and
Mm,
Illinois and Wisconsin come into a close third. Wisconsin is
okay.
almost as bad, but the thing is, man, is like when it comes to women getting more rights, I don't agree with that. I don't think it applies to women getting more rights now. I think it's getting to the point where they can't even help women now. You know, they want your money.
Mm,
They want you to say, you know, these women to stand behind them and support them. But from what I'm hearing, even women don't help or don't really get much help from them, from the organization, which is Land of
okay.
Lincoln.
Mm,
You know, they don't even really get help from them either. The funds aren't there or something. So that's my final
yeah,
thoughts
a
on it.
further review, yeah, further review would be required. Um, um, yeah. Again, I can't comment about any specific organisation because I'm just not knowledgeable about those. Um,
I'm,
mm,
I'm just glad to get your take on it. Um, I now, like I said too, that one case that was over in Ireland. Okay. Um,
mm,
in the end, I put all the posts down there, and the one at the end is the one that she finally admitted, yeah, her dad was a little bit, you know, hard on him and stuff, and did smack her around when she was younger. But she said, even herself, which I can understand. She's like, back in those days, that's the way they did things. You know what I mean? It was a completely different way of living back then. So
mm,
right there, I do understand that part, but I just wanted to be clear too. You know, like there's two sides of the story too, because it's like you had her story, and then you had the family after her family saying a bunch of stuff. So I still think
that's
it's
my mum always used. Yeah, as my mum always used to say, you need two people to tango.
yeah, and it's two sides of every
Mm,
story too. You know,
mm, mm,
so. Well, I am going to go ahead and end this before we have any more internet
mm,
problems. And I appreciate you
indeed.
being here. I think this was actually a good topic. It been
Mm,
it was pretty interesting, and I
yeah, yeah.
I will end it, and we will see you next week. All right. Tech Talk tonight. Actually,
Mm, indeed.
you going you
Mm,
Tan wanted to know
yeah,
our
yeah. I just saw the message him asking what the topics are going to be.
we're going to
I've got
discuss it.
nothing lined up, so yeah.
We
Mm,
need to kind of brainstorm on that too. Kind of go over what you
mm,
guys were wanting to talk about and stuff too. Like security thing would be a good
mm,
idea about making a good security. You know, having good security when it
you
comes to
have
your
to be
computer. So
okay.
maybe
Okay.
some stuff like
Something
that.
to discuss. Discuss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay.
And I'll go ahead and shut up there because this isn't a tech talk episode. So.
Mm, indeed.
And thank you for being here. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye.
Indeed. Speak to you later. Bye.
Nice suit, by the way.
Thank you.
See you later.
Mm.
Alright. That was alright. So.